The Battlefield franchise has been delivering large-scale tactical battles for over 20 years now. In that 20 years, we've got quite a number of games, ranging from masterpieces to... yeah, we'll get to that. That's why today, we're going to be ranking every Battlefield game ever made. So before we get into the ranking, let's set some criteria. Battlefield is primarily a multiplayer franchise, so I'm mainly going to be ranking it off that. If the game does have a single-player campaign, I'll mention it and give my thoughts, but just know that I won't sway my ranking much. Now for the older games in the series, I'll be considering how well received they were back in the day, as well as how they hold up now. With all that out of the way, onto the ranking. Starting off at number 14, we have a three-way tie for last place. The three games are Battlefield Play for Free, Battlefield Online, and Battlefield Heroes. These are easily the worst games in the series, and I don't think anyone would disagree. All three of these games are free to play, and I think that's what killed them. They are absolutely filled with microtransactions and pay-to-win mechanics, so I don't even consider them a true Battlefield game. Out of the three of them, I spent the most time with Battlefield Heroes, and I do think it's the better of the three, but I just can't look past its glaring issues. At number 13, we have Battlefield 2042, and this game could have been so much more. Led by a brilliant marketing campaign, I, along with many others, were sure that 2042 was going to be a return to format after the disappointing Battlefield 5. Instead, what we got were generic operators, huge empty maps, and a buggy, unplayable launch. The reception was so bad that the player count has almost been eradicated, with only a few thousand playing at any given time. In fact, players are actually going back to the older games. 2042 is still receiving content and updates, but I think the core game is so fundamentally flawed that these updates won't be enough to bring players back. Next, at number 12, we have Battlefield 1943. Now I can already hear the angry comments typing, but guys, I love this game. I so wish I could rank it higher, but there's just not enough content. With only 4 maps, 2 game modes, and a limited amount of weapons, I just can't justify placing this game any higher. That being said, what content we have here is amazing. It was the first game in the series I played, and I put so many hours into it. For only $15, this is everything the free-to-play games should have been and more. At number 11, I have Battlefield Hardline. Hardline was the first game in the series to not focus on military combat, rather focusing on a cops and robbers setting. While this was a big risk, I think they pulled it off pretty well. New additions such as Hotwire and Heist were very fun and chaotic game modes. The more urban map design and focus on civilian vehicles was also a welcome addition. The game also had a single-player campaign that, while not amazing, was a fun little 4-hour shooting gallery. I really think what killed Hardline was its release date. It was released in early 2015, just over a year after Battlefield 4. I mean, we were still getting DLC for Battlefield 4 only months before Hardline came out. It may not be the best in the series, but it's a decent experiment and worth going back to. Number 10 is Battlefield Vietnam. Released almost 20 years ago, it took the concepts established by Battlefield 1942 and brought it to the jungles of Vietnam. The maps, weapons, and even the soundtrack set the scene for an authentic Vietnam experience. The gameplay is very similar to 1942, but with some new additions such as a 3D map and customizable classes. Vietnam is a setting that Battlefield really needs to make a return to. The game might be a little hard to go back to due to the aged gameplay, but I still think you should give it a try. At number 9, it's Battlefield 5. 5 was another game that could have been so much more than it was. A return to World War II, players stormed the beaches of Iwo Jima and the lush fields of Nazi-occupied France. Rather than having traditional DLC, the game featured free DLC maps that were rolled out. The game featured multiple single-player war stories that focused on less well-known battles of the war, which I enjoyed quite a bit. Even though I still enjoy the game, it has its fair share of problems. The game really felt like it was rushed, and right when it was on the verge of being great, it was abandoned to focus on 2042. If DICE had just put more time into it, it could have been one of the greatest games in the series. However, as it stands now, it's sitting somewhere in the middle. At number 8, I have Bad Company 1. Bad Company 1 was the first game in the series to feel like modern Battlefield. The first to use the Frostbite engine, it introduced the signature destructible environments the series is known for. The single-player campaign is one of the best in the series, and the first iteration of Rush also makes its first appearance. For fans of the newer games that want to give the older games a try, this is a perfect one to go back to. The only reason the game is this low is due to the fact it was never ported to PC. DICE, why? Number 7 is the game that started it all, Battlefield 1942. At a time when World War II shooters were a dime a dozen, 1942 stood out by having these huge 32v32 player battles. Battlefield's signature game mode Conquest also made its first appearance here. It's crazy to see how little the Battlefield formula has changed in 22 years. We also got 2 expansion packs for the game that added even more content. You guys remember expansion packs? Those were the days. Like Vietnam, it can be a little hard to go back to these days, but it's worth it to see where the series started. To put it any lower than number 7 would be disrespectful. At number 6 we have Battlefield 2142. Set in the distant future, this game was one of my favorites growing up. Easily the best part of the game for me was the new Titan game mode. I spent so much time playing this game mode, and I can't believe it didn't show up in 2042. In Titan mode, both teams have to destroy the other team's Titan, a huge flying warship. If you played Carrier Assault in Battlefield 4, it was kinda like that, but way more awesome. There were really no other futuristic shooters like this at the time, and I really hope we get a sequel. Out of all the classic titles, this is my second favorite, because of course my favorite is Battlefield 2 at number 5. What can I say about this game that hasn't been said already? For all the Battlefield veterans watching, I'm sure you guys put a lot of time into this one. The first Modern Warfare focused game in the series, this is a game I think of when I think classic Battlefield. Maps like Gulf of Oman and Strike at Karkand are just a few of the amazing maps in the game. Battlefield 2 was also the first game to feature Commander mode and even squads. I think every Battlefield fan has to at least give this one a try, and it actually holds up really well these days. Number 4 is Battlefield 1, and the hype train for this game was real. I still remember when the first trailer came out and I was so excited for the game. DICE made the definitive World War I shooter, and thousands still play it today. The World War I setting brings with it a variety of unique weapons, vehicles, and maps. I have so many fond memories with this game that it feels like a disservice to rank it at number 4. That just goes to show how great the top 3 is. It was really hard to decide my top 3. I feel like they were all amazing games and they could really go in any order. That being said, I have Bad Company 2 at number 3. Bad Company 2 takes the groundwork laid by the first game and improves upon it in every single way. Whenever I think Bad Company 2, I think Rush. Rush was king in this game. We had maps specifically designed around Rush, and then adapted to Conquest. Everything from the vehicles to the weapons to even the sound design was just perfect. The single player campaign is also the best in the series, by far. It also had one of the best expansions of all time with the Vietnam expansion. At number 2, it's Battlefield 3. To me, Battlefield 3 truly felt like a successor to Battlefield 2. The moment you spawn in, the desert sand blows up towards the screen. Blue-tinted lens flares nearly blind you as Jeeps and Abrams tanks fly by you. Maps like Caspian Border and Operation Firestorm are some of the best maps in the game. The Frostbite 2 engine looked amazing as well, way ahead of its time. The sound design in this game is phenomenal. Bullets whizzing past your head and jets flying by at hundreds of miles per hour make you feel like you're on an actual battlefield. I have over 650 hours in this game, and it's never gotten boring. The single-player campaign is a decent, albeit generic experience, and I highly suggest you and a friend give the co-op campaign a try. I almost put this game at number 1. There's one game it just couldn't beat out. That game, of course, is our number 1 pick, Battlefield 4. At launch, Battlefield 4 was nearly unplayable. It had a generic campaign, the netcode was terrible, and people were actually going back to play Battlefield 3 instead. Despite all this, Battlefield 4 pulled one of the biggest 180s in modern gaming history. It turned into one of, if not the greatest multiplayer first-person shooter of all time. Maps like Siege of Shanghai showcased destruction on a level never seen before. Each map had its own special Evolution set piece, yet none as impressive as a collapsing skyscraper. Just the amount of weapon and attachment combinations is nothing short of mind-blowing. Even in 2023, 10 years after release, there are still thousands of players playing it every day. I got this game at launch, I've been playing it ever since. Well, there it is. Every Battlefield game ranked. Did you agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, liking and subscribing helps me out a lot. I appreciate you watching. Have a good day.